And we are live now, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate those of you on time who allowed us to start about 5 minutes late to allow everyone to trickle in. We've got some new faces on there, and I'm excited to learn of what we've got tonight. We've got 3 panelists on here. So we're waiting for the 3rd panelist to jump on. But on the line with me, I do have Heather Lamb from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hi, Heather.
Hello.
Awesome. And then Isabel Ward right out of our office here in Waterford Lakes in Orlando. So, hey, Isabel.
Hey, everybody.
Good. So that audio is going for check, check. I want to go through some ground rules for those of you who are on here for the first time. We do it every Tuesday night from 5 to 6. The content changes based on what you guys want. So about 2 months ago, people asked for a listing presentation, and now we've got it. So let's take a look at some ground rules as we move forward with this. We're going to start exactly at 5:05. I changed that for tonight since we have a lot of new people on here. We do like to start right at 5 o'clock and end promptly at 6 o'clock to make sure we respect your time. Engage with everyone with questions and comments. You guys are all going to see you are muted right now for the sake of not having some background noise. If you do have a specific question, go ahead and type it in the question panel down there, and I'll be able to see your question. I can unmute you if you have access, or I can just speak on your behalf. So go ahead and ask me questions, ask the panelists questions, and I'll make sure you get involved there. If you are unmuted and you have some background noise, you can go ahead and mute yourself. You can do it by clicking the little green microphone or the green phone. If you are dialed in, I believe you can push *6 to mute yourself on and off. That's a little bit of housekeeping there. Be prepared to implement the strategies you've learned. Again, we do this every Tuesday. We've been doing it since October, and I'm a firm believer that any training you go to, if you do not have an action plan and implement anything, then it's a waste of your time. So go ahead and take some good notes, implement some things you learned tonight from our 3 panelists. And then tell me what you've implemented from a previous webinar. I'd love to hear the feedback. If you guys want to find me on Facebook or shoot me an email, shoot me a text, I'd love to hear the feedback in that aspect. So without more fluff, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight is the main content speaking specifically on listing presentations. Listing presentations, we have our 3 panelists. Isabel Ward is a solo agent, so her goal the next 2 to 3 months is to hire her first executive administrator. On herself, she had 32 closed units in 2012, 20 closed listings, $4.2 million in closed volume, and Isabel specifically asked her to be on here today because she's a short sale guru. She does the short sale mentorship here for our less than experienced agents, we'll call it. And I really wanted to specifically talk with her with what she does to screen short sale candidates. So, hi, Isabel.
Hey, Rick. How are you?
Cool. Is his numbers pretty accurate? It's pulled off MLS, so it might be a little bit different. It's only as accurate as I can, but it's pretty close to it.
Pretty close. Probably the closed units are higher only because at any given time in the mentorship program, the closed units of those agents is really 50% mine. So
okay.
In most cases, I don't list, put myself on the MLS. I have them list so that they can get their numbers, launch their business, and I'm kind of.
You're getting credit for 20, but it's probably closer to 30 to 35. It sounds like with
Correct.
42.
Correct.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Next is Heather. Now, Heather's got a partner with no executive administrator, so you have 2 realtors working. These are numbers with 2 agents in a partnership. 89 closed units last year in 2012, 41 of which were closed listings, and $14.7 million in closed volume. So congratulations to that. Heather, I believe you sent me that you pretty much had a 13 to 19% growth in all of your categories year over year.
Yeah, we didn't quite meet our goal that we had set for ourselves, but we were pretty excited with the growth. And we did actually just hire an executive office manager for us. This is his 2nd week, so we're super excited about that.
Congratulations. Now this is showing here that your average price point for you is about $157,000. Is that pretty accurate and reflects your market?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Our MLS is about $135 right now. Mine and Kosh's, our average is $167. So.
Okay. So it's almost identical to what we're having. Our MLS, the meeting price last month was $131,000. So this office is about $145. So very similar numbers there. And then we were talking a little bit before the call that your market is not quite a seller's market. 3-month inventory is what we have. You're a little more balanced at 4.5 to 5.
Yeah, we've been really blessed here in Tulsa that we didn't feel the big swings like a lot of you did. We are seeing it, and it's definitely coming our way, and we can feel it, but it's not as drastic as what you have right now.
Okay. And then Heather, question came up. Heather's located out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that was a question somebody had. She's up there in Tulsa. I met Heather at one of the conventions, I believe, in Vegas last year, and then this last reunion we had. So, and then our final panelist, who she's actually leaving a listing appointment on her way. Ironic.
Hey, Ricky, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm here.
Is it Jenny? Hey, Jenny.
Hey.
Cool. So Jenny has a team. She and her husband Mike's on the call as well. Have a team with, we'll call it four buyer's agents. One came halfway through, so I almost said 3.5. However, 4 buyer's agents. Your team totals were, give or take, 168 closed units, 79 closed listings, which was all of you, because you don't have any other listing agents, and $30 million in closed volumes. Does that sound pretty accurate?
Mike? Is he?
Mike's on mute.
Mike on it?
It's accurate. I verified it. He is, but his microphone's not working. She was referencing to her husband, the CPA, the CEO of the office. So we're going to get started. The way it's going to work is I'm just almost going to have that question-answer interview with you guys. As panelists, please jump in. I almost want to make this a 4-person roundtable to get that. And then any questions some of the viewers might have, go ahead and type it in. We'll make sure it gets answered for you. So first off, Isabel, you do a lot of short sales. And I've got to ask, a lot of people like to turn the other way or run from short sales, and you tend to be magnetic toward them. Why do you love short sales so much?
Well, first of all, we had a shift in market, and so they became very prevalent. We can't help but encounter them. Secondly, I am, as you know, a paperwork person. I like to make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to. And more than that, I like to argue. So, you know, arguing with a bank is one of the things I like the best. And so when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and after doing them for as long as I have done them, I've been able to build relationships with, you know, the VPs, et cetera. So when I hit a wall, I can get around that wall and still get the file closed.
Okay, so that's become your niche a little bit. I've heard you talk with other people that your pre-qualification for taking on a short sale is pretty extravagant, and you won't always take it on. How do you, is there a certain type of questions you always want to ask before you even meet with somebody regarding the short sale of the property?
Yes, I definitely do a shorter interview by phone, and I get some questions out of the way, you know, to one, establish their motivation for doing this, 2, to see, you know, what information they can share with me that they know, and then more importantly, that's at the point I give them the authorization to release, because if I'm not talking to the bank, I don't know if I want that short sale. So once I go through that and I determine, you know, are they up to date on their HOA, what can they tell me, and it looks viable, I will send them the authorization to release to the bank to have the conversation with them as to, you know, who's the investor, what's the principal balance on here, is there MI insurance, you know, things that I don't want to have a surprise at the end and then you can't close the file.
And this is done over the phone prior to your actual presentation?
Yes, I actually have already talked to the seller, gotten to pretty much some information from them, gotten them to fill out and sign the authorization to release, and I've already sent it to the bank so that I can have the conversation with the bank. Because as a typical example, if you have MI, you know, mortgage insurance on a loan, and it's radian, you're not going to get it closed. 99% points that it's not going to happen. I've had one successful radian because it was a small amount, but they typically will not do prom notes anymore. And so if it's a $20,000, $30,000 come to the table contribution from the seller and that's not going to happen, then there's no point in you taking that and marketing it.
How often do you get kickback? Because you're asking to speak with the bank prior to any exclusive agreement. Is there one liability? Is there 2? Kickback or objections from your sellers and from your listing clients?
No, usually the sellers don't really object. They'll give me the authorization to release because it requires, you know, a minimal, at that point, amount of information. It requires the bank's, you know, account number, their signature and social security number. So at that point, they're not turning over all their financials and everything to me. So it's basically a fact-finding mission. And then once we have that and we've established that, yes, you know, it is a viable short sale, yes, we can successfully do this, that's at the point that I call them back, make an appointment to meet with them. And I'm very strict, very strict. I tell them, I'm coming over to look at the house. I'm going to take the pictures, measurements, everything all at once, so we don't have to put you through this more than one time. I send them the disclosures ahead of time so that when I get there, they have them. And so my question when I call them the day before to basically confirm my appointment is, you know, I'm looking forward to meeting with you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Let's go over a very quick checklist so that we're both ready. Number one, have you filled out all the disclosures? Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Now, I sent you a list of documents I was going to need, tax returns, hardship letter, and I go through the list. If they give me any hesitation or say, hey, no, you know, I haven't gotten a chance to go to the accountant and I haven't gotten a chance to do this or that and get my tax returns, then my position is that's no problem. Don't stress over it. Let's just meet, you know, day after tomorrow or this day at this time to give you time to do it. Or would it be more convenient for you to bring the forms to my office and have me copy them? If they aren't willing to basically turn over what we need from the start and they're going to resist, they will resist every step of the way, and it will just make my job much harder.
Okay, good point there. So common objections, this is what we might hear, what I experienced when I was an agent. People who, if you're prospecting short sales, they want to do a loan modification. What's your common objection handler for that when you want to do a loan modification? Do you have some scripts you use?
Basically, it's more a script of, you know, through experience of having done it long enough that I ask them, did the bank offer you a loan modification? What terms did they offer you? Have you submitted? And if they want to do a loan modification at that point, I tell them we will revisit listing for a short sale because the bank will never allow us to do both simultaneously. So if you feel you want to do a loan modification, in my mind, that's a signal for they're not ready to let go of the house. And if they haven't gotten over it and they're not ready to let go of the house, then they need to go ahead and do the loan modification and try it on their own and see if it works or doesn't work. The second part, you know, speaking with an attorney, you do get that. Absolutely. You know, we tell them in the URSA 1, you know, the listing agreement that, you know, they have the right to do that and see an accountant. We tell them again in the hold harm list that we are not attorneys. So if they want to speak with an attorney, absolutely they can do that. And as far as, you know, they want to live for free as long as possible, well, that's likely not going to happen right now because while the banks are behind, we are trying to push those short sales as quickly as possible because we're going to run out of time for them to be able to write off a deficiency, not a deficiency, but a 1099 when it comes. So, you know, there is no live for free. You can live for free, but you can also put yourself at risk for a sale date.
Okay. Good stuff there. Question came up with percentage of foreclosures and regular sales. Right now in this market in Orlando, about 50% of our homes are traditional, about 23% are foreclosure, and about 27% are short sale. Do you see that similar market where you're at as well, Heather?
No, we don't have quite as many short sales on our end right now, so we're pretty blessed. We do have a few, but since our inventory isn't as short as yours, there's still some out there for them to look at traditional sales.
Okay. So there's a question there. The must-have documents prior to listing a short sale, you kind of rattled them off. I want to give everybody an opportunity to take some notes here. When you're ready to take a short sale, before you begin the process and your clock starts ticking, if you will, Isabel, what are the things that you must have from your clients prior to you taking a listing?
I must have their tax returns, last 2 years of tax returns.
Last 2 years.
Correct. And if they filed an extension, for example, and they say they filed taxes last year, pretty soon they're going to be asking us for the 2012 and the 2011 instead of the 10 and 11, then when that happens, what I tell them is, oh, they'll say, I filed an extension, give me a copy of the extension, because the bank will accept that if you file an extension. I always ask them for their hardship letter. I want to make sure that they're writing up a hardship letter, and there is a hardship, because while you hear that banks don't care about the hardship, they still ask for the hardship letter, so they really do care.
What are some common hardships that you have? What are some common hardships that you hear?
Divorce, curtailment of income seems to be the number one that I usually deal with. There can be illness, you know, of a spouse. So those are usually the top ones I hear, but I would say curtailment of income 90% of the time seems to be the hardship. because they
Well,
can
if
also
there is the
prove
most,
that.
right, if there's the most outrageous hardship that you think get accepted, I mean, would you say, holy cow, I can't believe they accepted this as a hardship? What would that be? Just so we kind of know what the ranges of what's
Inability to sell. Inability
Okay.
to sell, because inability to sell at what they owe is a hardship in sense, but it's a market thing. So I've had somebody say, hey, I need to get out from under the house, and I can't do this, can't afford it, but I can't sell it. So since I can't sell it, I got to short sell it because it's the only way I'm going to get to sell it. So
a hardship is just because you're upside down, that is a hardship.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
And depending on the bank and depending on the loss, they will take it. So, there's some instances that that's considered, a perfectly fine hardship. I always make them at the beginning, while the bank is going to ask us for updates financially. That's a financial worksheet. That's your 2 months of bank statements, 30 days of pay stubs. What I do typically is at the beginning, I will ask for those, even though I know every 30 days the bank is going to want an update. But I do that because I want to make sure the seller now gets used to doing that and knows that it's required, that they have to do this. Otherwise, if I wait till the very end, we're scrambling and they've thrown out pages to the bank statement, and the bank wants to see it even if it's a blank page.
Now, is this like a checklist that you have that you keep? That I've got 15 people who are registered on here right now that we could send it out to them and they could take a look at this checklist?
Yeah, I do have a checklist that we put together a few years ago, and the checklist contains basically the most common hardships. There's a list of them. There's 2 letters, a short and a longer hardship letter. It kind of just gives them an idea how, what they have to do to format it. And then the bottom of this particular handout shows a list of all the documents that we typically will have to have during the short sale, and I always ask for up front.
Okay, so what I'm going to do then is after tomorrow, we'll make sure that everybody on this call gets a copy of that.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else, Isabel, that I did not touch upon that's important when you take a short sale listing that we need to touch upon?
No, I just think that at the end of my checklist, I have a page that I do the phone interview with. It's got questions on it. I think at the very end, I always ask them, tell me, the worst and the best part of this. I mean, is this the worst thing that happened to you, the best thing that happened to you? Kind of the genie in the bottle question. If you could go back and have a wish, what would it be? And if they tell me, this is the worst, I just want to be done with this, get, the house, I'm over it, whatever, then that candidate is a great short sale candidate because they're not going to fight you on price markdowns. They're not going to fight you on anything. They want to get it done. If they start crying and telling you they love the house, then maybe they need to see if they can get a modification or work it out somehow, because they're really not ready to let go, and they will fight you every step of the way for everything you need.
Sure. Great stuff. Okay. Very good. Let's shift over now to Heather from Tulsa. So Heather, when talking to you, I was extremely impressed because you said pretty naturally and pretty casually that getting 7% on your listings is a normal thing that you do. So I was very intrigued at how you did it. Had the chance to talk with you earlier today, just kind of as a little screen for this, but wanted to really go into the whole process and then specifically what you do for that commission. Talking with both you and Jenny, you're very similar agents in the aspect if you don't have this exact formula for this is my listing presentation, I do this, this, and this, and this. You more of get your vibe, you walk in, you build rapport, and you both have some very common things, and we'll see those reflected. But let's go ahead and get started. Pre-listing conversation, I think, is very important. So what do you do over the phone at the pre-listing conversation to qualify them or to see if they are a good candidate for a listing for you to spend your time on?
Well, when I give, when I call them, the first thing I ask is what they all want to tell us is what they're going to do next. They don't really, most sellers don't want to focus on selling the house, especially if they're buying or building or something fun. So I'll listen to what they have to say, what they're doing, what their goals are, because ultimately that's going to be my ability to use pain versus pleasure. As you can tell, I took 3 bowls, so I'll probably use a lot of that kind of language. But that's how I can kind of use that towards them to kind of help them achieve their goal, but doing it easy without fighting with them the whole time. So I'll just get, their basic information, names, emails, phone number, find out. I always ask what their payoff is. A lot of times it's surprising. A lot of people have almost no idea. So I'll make sure that they have that payoff ready for when that appointment is. So I'll encourage them to go ahead and call the bank, get their payoff so that we know, what they need. Find out, okay, you're going to go buy. What kind of house are you going to buy? What price? Do you need a down payment? What do you need? So while I'm talking to them, I'm finding out how much money that they're going to need to net by knowing what their next goal is. If they're wanting to put down so much money, I know that they're going to consider that they need that out of the proceeds of the sale as well. So I just start kind of making notes and asking a lot of questions before I ever even show up to the listing appointment.
Okay. Now, do you do a pre-listing packet that you send over to them, or is it just a conversation?
Honestly, I want to. We just hasn't happened because we were so busy and it's just the two of us, but that is definitely something we're going to be implementing next year. Or this year, I'm sorry, we're going to send over some bios, some things that we want them to fill out ahead of time for us so that, we kind of take some of that work out so that we can really be spending more time on the conversation and actually shorten the listing appointment at the same time.
Very good. Okay. So now the listing setup, when I was running this, what did I see there? When you walk into the home, knock, 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 here I am. Hi, Heather, thanks for coming. What's your listing presentation look like? When you walk in, or do you go straight to the table? Do you take a tour of the house first? And what sort of conversations do you lead with?
It'll depend on the client, on which one we do first. A lot of times you can tell that they're really, really wanting to show you the house. So, if we can make that happen pretty quickly, because we do want to see the house, but at the same time, we've got to really start digging deep on their motivation. I mean, it may not be a listing that we even want. So we don't want to waste a whole lot of time on something if it's not a listing that you're planning on taking. So we'll go through the house with them a little bit, then usually we find a place that we can all get kind of comfortable. And a lot of times I will direct us as to where we're going to sit, because if they want us to sit in like the living room, it's really hard to do a really good, a good conversation and show everything that I need sitting on a sofa. So if I can get us into the kitchen at the table, that's what I'm going to do. So I usually, get us sitting at the table so that everyone is, I can make sure that they're both paying attention to me too that way.
Okay, and you sit across from perhaps a husband and wife, so they both look at you.
Yeah, and that is one thing that I do in the pre-listing conversation as well, is make sure that any parties that have a say in the sale of that house are going to be there at that appointment, so it's not a waste of my time.
Okay. Find the motivation. I think you've brought this up, 2 or 3 or 4 times already in the 5 minutes we've been talking. And something she quoted is, what is it that I can do to make your dreams come true? And that's what Heather mentioned, that's really what she's looking for in that motivation. So what are some questions? She mentioned pain versus pleasure. Explain to everyone out there what that means.
Well, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find out what it is that they get, what their pleasure, what their dreams are, what it is that ultimately, what is the reason why they're selling their house. Hopefully you're hoping it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing, in the short sales and in situations like that, but you can still use that motivation. And so that way, when you get down deeper and they're, not wanting to reduce the price, or you're negotiating and, oh, I don't want to give my house away, you're, instead of focusing on that and the negative, you can flip it and focus it on that positive. Well, if you can get to what you want that much faster, this will get your dream come true, then in the end, it's a win-win. Because, the way that I look at it is, our job is, coming from contribution. What can we do to help this person?
Right. And that actually goes hand in hand. Let me see if I can do this here. People start off and they're in a positive present. We'll call this ES. There we go. You want to shift them down to being a negative present, or they might already be there. And this is moving from pain to pleasure. Once they're in a negative present, this might be they need to move and they can't do it because they have this house, they can't afford 2 mortgages, and they now have to commute to work, or they don't have room for their mother-in-law. Then you want to move them to a negative present. That's my handwriting here. I'm sorry, negative future. Negative future. When this continues on, what's it going to be like when you have to do this? How much is it costing you? How much is that time with your husband worth? And then you move to the positive future. And that, I believe, is that motivation. Yeah, how's that for impromptu? You guys all see that? So you want to move them through this cycle, depending where they're at. Most people think they're in a positive present or negative present. Finding the motivation says negative future and then positive future. So she's strictly looking for, why do you want to move? What's it going to do for your son to be in the school district? What's it going to do for your husband to not have to commute an hour to work each way? Does that sound like it's...
Yeah, and interestingly, when you're having these conversations with them in the listing appointments, they may tell you something and they may not mention it again for a while. So you want to make sure you're taking good notes and referring back to those notes, because that may be the one thing that you need to help get that sale closed.
Right. And then now the most intriguing part for me is you have not mentioned anything about market analysis, about CMAs. You've not marked anything about what you do as your 15-point marketing presentation. And that's a lot of, I think, where some agents, although important to have available, sometimes just talk too much and talk. You're more asking questions, letting the agents do the talking. The materials that you do bring with you is the Cellar Net Sheet. So explain to everyone what your presentation is with all the multiple forms you have, and really specifically of how you let them decide that they want to pay you more of a commission.
Well, and I do have, I do give them a copy of their tax records and a copy of the comps for the neighborhood, because those are important for them, because we are talking a little bit about appraisal and making sure that they have realistic realistic expectations for what their house is going to sell for. So once they've kind of gotten past that point, what I do is, before I go to the listing, I have a pretty good feel. If it's one of those that I don't, I'll make a separate appointment and come back with the Cellar Net Sheet. But what I'll do is I'll make 3 or 4 different price ranges based off the comps that I did the research before I went on what I can base an average house would probably sell. So I'll have these all ready, and then when I get there, I'll kind of know which ones to pull. And I'll do...
Okay. And that's based on their upgrades or based on perhaps the neighborhood that you can't always see through a CMA off the MLS.
Exactly. So once you get there, you should have a much better feel on what that house should sell for. So you just kind of go with a range of what could possibly happen. And then for each of those prices, I do up a net, one at 6% commission, one at 7% commission, and one at 8% commission. And then when it gets to that point, and anytime they ask me what is the commission I charge, and anytime they ask me what the house sells for, I tell them, you get to choose. And I say that throughout the whole time. Ultimately, you get to choose. Then once I get to the point where I'm going to do it, I'm going to lay it out, all of them out at once, and kind of fan them down just a little bit so that they can see them all. And I say to them, here are your different options. After looking at these comps and after what we said, here are the different options that you have for you to choose from. And say, I will work for any of these. It doesn't matter which one. But by choosing a 7 or 8% commission, what you're actually doing is offering out half to the other side. So I've made sure I've already explained to them about how we as agents are, you pay us our half for our marketing and going out and finding buyers, and then the other half is going to go to the buyer's agent for them to go find buyers for us. So ultimately, we're paying other people to bring people to us. So by laying these out, I kind of show them that, the difference, honestly, and it's a good way to practice, too, is to do a couple of different net sheets up at different prices, because really the commission difference isn't that much. It's very, very minimal, usually less than a mortgage payment in our price points that we're talking about, quite a bit less, actually. So I will just show them that if they were to pick 7 or 8%, we're going to offer out 3.5 or 4 to the buy side. By doing that, you're offering an incentive for that buyer's agent to want to show your house and to want to sell your house. So, for example, if you have an agent is going to show 3 houses in a subdivision, the buyer didn't pick your listing, but they know that you're offering out more, they're going to throw it in just so that, just because they can. And the more people that we get in your door, the closer you are to actually getting the offer.
And what I'm doing here is kind of giving the example, because this is what you do when you say, here's the price at $150. And if $150, you're going to have, times 6%, so equals this. I should have had this prepared for you guys. Times this, and we bring that out now. There's your commissions at, oh, that's a big number.
Yeah,
Change
hopefully
that.
that's not right. I mean, hopefully it's
That
right,
would,
but
that would be a nice commission. Yeah.
yeah, I might not pick that one.
There we go. So equals this
So
sign.
you can see like the difference would be from 9,000 to 9,000.
What'd you say?
That's still at 6. Okay.
Yeah.
Heather, do you
So just
offer different marketing solutions across, or is it the same? Is it the same?
No, and we're very clear about it. We tell them up front. Yes, and I tell them we will work for you for any of these. So whatever one you pick, so that they, if for some reason they want to pick 6, I don't really want to make them feel that bad about it. So we said we'll work for any of these. It's completely up to you. The bonuses for you is that by selling it, by offering out a higher commission, then what ends up happening is you're going to get more showings. And it is true. We are seeing that that's the case. The other thing that I want to implement this year that we haven't implemented in the past is I'm going to send out newsletters or some kind of flyer or some kind of notification to the realtors in my community of my listings that are offering out bonus commission. So that's one thing that I'm going to add to this presentation next year. So it is a little bit of a bonus because by picking that, you get to a special, thing sent out to different agents. So usually it's really interesting to watch this as it's going on because typically, especially if you have a husband and wife, typically what they're going to do is they're going to eliminate something pretty quickly, whether it be a certain price, whether it be 6% or 8%. It's usually one of the exterior ones of this. As they eliminate it, I just take those papers and put them back in my folder and then spread the other ones out. And I keep kind of moving it to help them make their decision on which one they're going to go with. What I've found is that, when they can see the difference, that between 9,000 and 10,500 is only 1,500. And that's, like I said, that's less than most people's mortgage payment. If you can get your house sold faster and you save yourself a mortgage payment, basically it's the same amount of money out of your pocket. And you get to move on to your next thing that you want to do that much faster. So we'll kind of start letting them pick it up. Sorry?
I was saying, you said more times than not, because just the way people think and the way they naturally do it, they're not going to pick here and they're not going to pick here. You're going to settle around here.
Sometimes, it's really interesting because they'll either decide up front that they don't want to do the bonus, so it's just the 6, or that they do. So sometimes they'll eliminate the 6% immediately, which is really interesting. And then you'll start having that conversation. I mean, I take a lot of listings at 8% because, looking at 3 to 3.5, it doesn't look, and usually I'll bring an MLS input sheet in and show them where it shows our commission on there so that they can visually see it. I'm a visual person, so I figure that speaks to the visual, instead of an audio learner. And but I mean, it's pretty equal between 7 and 8. But the funny thing is, a lot of people do end up in the middle at that 7 because then they figure they're offering a bonus, but it's not that much money out of their pocket.
Now, a question I had for you earlier, which came to my mind, if you're going to incentivize this seller that says, if we can get the buyers enticed with a bonus, they'll bring us something. How often has anybody said, we'll take it for 7, if you're willing to do it for 3% in your half, do 7 where you keep 3 and give out the bonus of 4% so someone else can bring us? Has that ever happened? And if it did, what would your response be?
It has never happened. Nobody has ever asked me, but my response to any time anybody asks me to reduce my commission like that, which is ultimately what they're doing, is I just let them know, I would love the opportunity to get you what you want and get me what I want, which is why that I focus on those net sheets on what they want to net, not what the house sells for, not anything, not anything else. What do they need in their pocket? What's the check that they're going to get at the table? And that's mostly what we focus on, which ultimately really helps me in my negotiations too, because I already know now what their bottom is, what I need to net, and I can kind of manipulate those numbers sometimes when I need to get it.
So if you knew they needed 142,600, and we could sell it for 155, then taking 8%, no problem. You don't remind them you're paying 8%. You're reminding them, I got you 142,600.
I got you exactly what you wanted so that you could move on and do, and they're ultimately so happy. I mean, I'll have it. In fact, I sold one last week that was an 8% that I brought the buyer. They never, ever even said anything or asked me to reduce my commission because they were just thrilled they got what they wanted at the end of the day. And when I went into this, I was super skeptical. I mean, honestly, it was my bold coach a year and a half ago that suggested that we do it. And he actually suggested 6, 7, 8, 9 and let them circle which one that they wanted. So mine's a little bit different. I've kind of tweaked it a little bit. And I went in, and like the first 2 times, I got what I wanted. And I was like, holy cow, this works. So we've been doing this over a year, like a year and a half. And our average commission is well over 3%. It's about 3.3% is what my average commission was last year.
And if you take half of your sales were listings, or 41 out of 89, so even less than half.
Well, I was looking at my listings on that. Yeah, I was just looking at my listings and the average commission.
Okay. Okay.
So that means,
Very good.
You needed to reduce it. And that's the other interesting thing about that. Sometimes you get to where, you've negotiated as far as you can negotiate, and the only thing left is to cut our commission if we're going to make it close. And some money is better than no money. But the interesting thing is if we have to reduce our commission at that point, we're still getting 3%. You're still getting full commission.
Right. I think the two things that
So you have
caught me off guard, but surprised me was that when I've heard this 6, 7, 8 in the past, just like Jenny asked, is there a different service, almost silver, gold, and platinum? If you choose me here, I'll do open houses. If you choose me here, I'll get professional photography. You say there's no difference in it. The difference is we are going to appeal the buyers to bring in and want to show your home more often, because it comes down to the more people in your home, the quicker it's going to be sold. It has nothing to do with a gold, platinum, or silver method. And then number 2, there's so much. Go ahead.
You build a reputation as being an agent that offers out a bonus, so other agents know that if they sell your listings, they're going to get paid more.
Awesome. And especially in the competitive market that we're seeing even more than you are, when you have some agents who want to work with you, and makes on the adverse side, when you're buyer's agents or when you have a buyer's contract, you're also that agent there. The next thing I love of what you do is there's a lot of minutia and details. This kind of segues into Jenny of don't make them be a realtor. They don't need to care about the commission and the marketing and the CMAs and anything else. That's what they're paying you to do. All you say is where are you going, when you need to be there, how much money do you need in your pocket. Great, let me do the rest. Here's where we go. And I think that's a great moral of the story.
I think perfect sum up.
Awesome. Is there anything else you do to make the close, or after you go through this, is it pretty much closing itself?
It pretty much closes itself because, like I said, it's kind of a natural thing as you're pulling it away. They're kind of picking and talking, deciding which ones for them. At the same time, if you have to do a lot of price reductions on it, and they, and it's in the list agreement, I do whatever for my.
You sound a little robotic, at least on my end. I don't know if it's everybody else.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
Okay, so I can't hear you, but before we go on to Jenny for the last question here, you mentioned your price reductions. You do it with very minimal increments. What's your increments you do for price reductions?
A minimum of 5,000.
Okay, we're having some audio issue there, Heather. If you want to type in that answer for that, then I can make sure everyone hears it off. Okay, so we're going to move forward. Thank you, Heather, and we'll get, if audio comes back on, we'll wrap it up and close it at the end. Jenny, right here from Orlando, thanks for being on and being patient, Jenny. And Jenny, you probably are known as the farming queen here. You have 2 predominant farms that started a 3rd and I believe 4th this last year. A lot of your listings, 81 listings taken, and a lot of it has been personal referrals from your database, from your farm. And what I love about talking with you this morning is when you go through there, it's all about building a rapport. I remember about 4 months ago I had a walk-in, and I said, there's a walk-in listing, would you like it? And you said, is it short sale or traditional? And I said, short sale. In a matter of 2 minutes, you opened up your filing cabinet, had your packet ready to go, and had your listing consultation. That preparation, I believe, is a very small percentage of agents who have. Tell me what you do to prepare for listings, or what you have prepared for listings when you go out there.
Well, we have a fancy folder with our information on it, and it makes us look good, right? We have our brochure that is sort of our brochure that talks about all of our different services we offer as a team. And then we have a preferred vendor brochure that I take with me that, you know, because I'm always having to say, well, call this carpet guy to clean the carpets, or call this, whatever, landscaper. And I circle the numbers in there, and it just makes us look that much more professional. And then I print out the listing agreement, and then I print out a, you know, the comps. But I don't do a fancy CMA because, quite honestly, I take the approach that I'm not going to teach them how to be a realtor and how to dissect comparables and where I'm going to find them and why I chose them and, you know, how I'm going to adjust them. What the clients really want to know is that, one, do you know what you're talking about? And then once they feel like you do, two, what price do you think you're going to sell my home for? And so I do what Heather does, is I meet them at the front door and I ask them to show me around. And it, you know, I take a good 15, 20 minutes doing it, because when I go through with them from room to room, I'm not just, you know, I'm taking frantic notes. But really what I'm doing is building that relationship, telling stories along the way, asking them questions about their family as we get to their office or they get to the kids or whatever, building that rapport, letting them feel like, you know, I do know what I'm talking about, you know, throwing in a couple things here and there about our team or what we've done or, you know, how I've seen this floor plan in the past or how we just sold that house down the street. And then by the time we get to the kitchen table, and I agree with Heather, I do the same thing, is I take the lead and I lead them to the table, because there's nothing worse than a family room, you know, listing appointment. So take them to a table, and then I basically, all I'm really doing is just getting excited about their mission. What is their goal here? What are they trying to accomplish? And I take that on as my goal. And I think that being transparent and authentic, and really getting passionate about what they're trying to do, and basically what I'm trying to figure out is, can I help them get there? And by doing that, all I have to do at that point is tell them the price, and then I have an elaborate net sheet that Mike built that is very similar like what Heather does. I don't get 7%, but I never have a conversation about commission, because I don't even highlight it. I'm working off of their bottom line. They've already told me what they need. Here's at that price that we, you know, just talked about. After all commissions are paid and doc stamps are paid and the title fees and, you know, customary closing costs, here's your bottom line. Is that what you can live with? And every time I get an offer, we're going to go over a net sheet just like this and make sure that we're working off of your net. And they go, yes, that's exactly what we need, or we need more. We have to, or yeah, if we could get less than that, we'll be happy with that. Just, you know, go get us an offer. And it's, you know, it's really a lay down at that point. So I don't spend time pulling out papers and showing them comps. I have them there in case I get that engineer that wants to see something, but I rarely pull them out.
Now, something else you mentioned, because you mentioned engineer if they want to see it, talking about the disc profile, talking about mirror matching. You do it very naturally, very well. When you're going around a house, you mentioned you do certain things besides look at the brick and mortar and look at the upgraded ceiling tiles. What are you doing when you go on this 10 to 15 to 20 minute walk around the house?
Well, I can just use the listing appointment I just came from. It's an old retired military Secret Service guy, 67, and his wife, and they have everything you can imagine in this home, everything that you can't see, upgraded insulation, blah, blah, blah. And we hit the front door, and we've made a connection, and she says, I'm keeping all the lights in the house. And I'm like, okay. And I've got my buyer's agents with me, and I'm like, well, you know, in that case, do you have the old ones? Well, no, but we'll just replace them with, you know, good ones. And I said, what I would recommend is if you could replace those before we list it, that way it doesn't come down to the, you know, disagreement of a light fixture when we come to the closing table. And she said, and she reared up right at the entry and says, I'm not taking those down. They're beautiful. They're going to help sell this home. And, you know, if it comes down to that, they can just take a hike. And I realized I had to soften up quickly, or else we weren't going to get to the family room. And so I thought, let me let her tell me all about how awesome their house is, all about the features, what they're going to take, what they're not going to take, get the whole picture, and then I can double back and give them some suggestions. And by the time I got to the table, they were serving me cookies. They canceled their next 2 appointments for the next 2 days. They loved me, and I hadn't even told them a price yet, and I didn't tell them one thing I was going to do to market their home. But just by building a relationship and letting them tell me all about their home and how great it is and agreeing with them, you know, I got what they told me what they needed out of it. I felt like I could make that happen, and it was a laydown. But knowing when you're walking around, you're going to get a feel for how passionate they're going to be about their different items in their house or the feedback you're going to give them, instead of just going right to the table and stepping in it.
That brings me to just another bold analogy here, or concept. You do this progressive. Everybody does it naturally. Before they want to know how smart you are, they've got to like you. Before they're going to trust you, they have to know you're smart. Before they list you, they have to trust you. You went in there, and you immediately showed them your knowledge of the home, and they didn't want to hear it until they liked you. So I think it's important, and you did it naturally, that as you guys are going through these listings, know where you stand with these people. When you walk into your best friend of 15 years, well, you're already up here, they trust you. That's why it's a layup listing, because as soon as they trust you, they're going to list with you. When you walk into somebody, where did this lead come from, Jenny?
They put on Facebook in the community, who should we list with, and some of our past clients said us.
So it's a complete stranger, a very, very Luke, coldish, warm referral. And they like you. You have knowledge maybe because you have a little referral, but they don't care because they got to like you first. And I think that's important of what you did, is you knew through that walk around, where do I stand with these people? And if you do that walk around and take a tour of the home, and they're always asking you for advice, and they're completely, you know, almost used as a confidant, you know you're up here somewhere. And I think that's very important to building that rapport of knowing where you stand to know what the next close is. So good stuff there. Okay, mirror and match what we just talked about, and you have it available for the engineers or for the preschool teachers who just love talking about their kids and how great they're going to be. The Cellar Net Sheet we've mentioned here, and if an agent needs to create their own Cellar Net Sheet, would you recommend a title company or a previous HUD or another agent? How do they create it? And what's some key things you have in there? What it might cost somebody to list a home?
Well, there's a couple of catches that most agents miss, and we have them on our sheet, and I'd be happy to share it. But one, when they tell you their payoff, you need to add one payment to that, because interest is paid in arrears. So you don't want to be at a closing table assuming their payoff is 1/4 and forget that they have to pay the interest of the month that you're closing in, which could be $1,500. And some of the closings are down to pennies, and you don't want to be off that big. So we've got the principal payoff there, and we also have the interest for the month of closing, which is, you know, clutch. And then we also prorate taxes on our net sheet, but keep in mind that the escrow account cannot be applied at closing, and they get those reimbursed after closing. I was kind of tired of negotiating around taxes and having to, you know, what they're going to walk away from the table knowing that they're going to get this $3,000 bonus check back in the mail 6 months later, or 3 weeks later. So we've got a walk away from the table net and you know, a final net after the escrow account is reimbursed, and I work off the after escrow account is reimbursed nets. But I you know, disclose that clearly they're going to walk away from the closing table with this check, and you only get burned on that a couple times before you figure out how to work those numbers into your exactly. And then you know, home warranty, whatever.
Right. Now, you've got a reputation, and the numbers show it, that you're consistently selling homes 10 to 15% above what the CMA is telling you it'll appraise at. How do you price it that way, and how do you get away with being 10 to 15% higher than the market?
Well, you have to trust your marketing, but we do professional photography on every one of our listings. and I go to that photography appointment. It's not one that I'm willing to leverage or miss. And at that appointment, again, that's when the sellers are seeing that I'm taking a hands-on interest in their property, and I'm holding the rugs and the shower curtains and the holding the whatever blankets off their couches while the photographer's taking the pictures, and I put it back, or I move a vase out of the family room, put it in the dining room, and then I can pass it off to the assistants, and they feel like I've really got my hands dirty and I'm in it. I'm partnering with them. But it is all about the marketing, photography, and knowing when you can stretch it. Because we do so much volume, we hear what the buyers are doing and what they're saying and where they're trending, and knowing that there's nothing else to choose from. So I will go look out at the actives, and I make sure that that's the case. They will stretch to the next bracket, so we'll get caught up in the searches, and as long as we're caught up in the searches and we're attractive when they get there, then they will come and look at the property, and we just have to get them through the door. And then I meet the appraiser out there, and I fight for the appraisal.
When you say next bracket, just for clarification, you're talking about common buyer searches bracket of 125 to 150 would be a bracket, 150 to 175 the next bracket. Is that what you mean there?
Right. Because the internet, they're going to search in blocks of 25.
Right. And that's going back to Heather when she was sounding robotic, what she'd mentioned. She does her price reductions in $5,000 at a time, and sticks with that number to hit a different bracket, because people will, 25 is a common one, but they're going to bracket at $5,000. If she does a price reduction, she'll do it at $5,000 to get a new trend of buyers in there. So that's a question we mentioned before. Now, Jenny, you do your listing presentation off of building the relationship, building the rapport, building the trust, showing the value, and working off that net sheet. And have you ever, or has it benefited you by showing that you are doing 10 to 15% higher? Does it ever get brought up, or do you have them closed prior to needing to get brought up, as opposed to your competition?
No, to be honest with you, I can't remember a time where I've had to demonstrate my numbers or pull out a flip chart of what I'm going to do to market the home. I just, by the time I'm at the table, they know I know what I'm doing, and I just say, listen, we're not going to leave a stone unturned when it comes to marketing. We're heavily invested in the big three. We're not going to, you're going to be found everywhere the buyers are looking. And, I'll throw out, we sell over 200 homes a year, or, whatever number, and I'll say that, so we are, and I say what I just said earlier, let's say we sell over 200 homes a year, so we hear what buyers are saying and what they're doing before you're even going to hear it on the news. And therefore, I can predict what the price is going to sell for, but then I have to go prove it with an appraiser. So I'll throw stats out, but just in natural conversation.
Sure. A couple of questions came through here. If you market it 10 to 15% higher and an offer comes in lower than you predicted, do you justify to them, or how do you justify of not getting what you anticipated, or does that not really happen because of your marketing?
Well, I have a net sheet the net sheet has 3 columns, and so I'll title them, reaching for price, most likely buyer offer, and then I'll have, possible appraisal price. So I'm always going to tell them the worst case scenario, what the papers are telling us the house is worth. And then we pick our marketing price. And so if I get them to have the mindset that if it's anything above what I think we're going to get that appraisal for, that it's, they have maximized the market and put every penny they possibly can in their pocket. So they feel like they're winning.
And what is the big 3 you mentioned?
Realtor.com, Zillow, and Trulia.
Okay, so the marketing websites there, the big 3. You had mentioned when you the appraisals that you meet the appraisal out there, and you also help him or her do their work a little bit by providing some CMAs that might not be the common found ones. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, you want to. I want to show the appraiser, one, hand them everything that the homeowners have done to the property to improve it, because they need to make note of that in their appraisal. Then I give them a copy of the contract in case they didn't have it already, the survey so they don't have to go measure everything or they can write on it. And then I give them comps. But don't show up to, I don't show up to speak to the appraiser and bring them the obvious and speak price per square foot with them because they just will shut you down. Realtors only speak in price per square foot. Appraisers don't. They want to know, features that they can make adjustments for, fences, 3-car garages, upgraded flooring, roof, whatever. I assume that they found everything in the community because that's where they're looking. But if those community numbers are not in line with my price, it's my responsibility to go find that one comp that may be just 1.2 miles away instead of 1 mile away, or go find a comp that is, maybe 100 square feet outside of what the appraiser would typically bracket, and then bring that comp and present it to the appraiser so that we can get it into the report. My theory is that if I give the appraiser the argument up front that they know they're going to get on the backside, if it doesn't appraise, they're going to work a little harder to get our number.
Good, great point. How much does, a couple of final questions rolling through here, how much does professional photography cost per listing?
We only pay $40.
Okay, so $40 and around that spot. Let's see if I have anything else here. Anything that I missed that you feel is important that people should know?
Not that I can think of. We are going to the pre-list packet as well. It's on our to-do list, like Heather. We've just been kind of moving too fast. But sending out the disclosures ahead of time, our Zillow testimonials, let them get to know us ahead of time is our theory. And then just do what you say you're going to do. Make sure that you don't go to a listing appointment and promise the moon and not be able to follow up. So just make sure you under promise and over deliver.
Sure. And would you be willing to share, do you have readily available your photographer? I don't know if you have
to be honest, I got him pretty busy. Maybe. Not that I don't want to share, but he works part-time. He can only make so much before he gets out of his Social Security. So
we'll get with his blessing, and if he has a blessing.
Out for more.
Okay. Yeah. We can do that. Well, Heather, Isabel, Jenny, thanks for being on here. We're wrapping up just over 6 o'clock.
Anytime.
And I think between the knowledge of the net kind of is a sum up, because if it's a short sale, you have to prepare and know if it's a good short sale. Take that 7% and market it and sell it 10 to 15% higher. It's a whole lot of extra money in your pocket at the end of the day for the same amount of money. So I'm excited to see all of you guys incorporate that. Next week I have 2 panelists ready to roll for buyer's presentations. A lot of the same question-answer interview session is going to be for buyer's presentation. Niche marketing, run your business like a business, all these are coming up. What is some more content or classes you guys would like to have? Go ahead and put them in the question spot right now. If there's a certain class you'd like or something for me to go find information, let me know. Also, we have been doing this since October, so the majority of these are recorded, and you'll see it on my YouTube page up here. So my last name and first name, Bosley Rick, you'll see a lot of the recorded webinars. So if you want to take a look at some past things on there. What have I answered for you? Any final questions? And what are you guys going to implement in the business? I'm going to give it about 15 seconds here of awkward silence as people are typing diligently. This is where I just listen to myself talk. If you guys do want to talk to them personally or shoot them an email, here's your panelists. Isabel at Florida Homes by Isabel, Jen at the Wemert Group, and hlam@kw.com. So shoot them an email, shoot them a question with any follow-up, or if you want to give them a nice thank you email, then they would appreciate that as well. Okay, if that's all we've got, it's 6:03. We're running a little bit over, and that's okay because we started a little bit late. I think we're pretty well on time. We'll see you next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Again, if you want to find me, here's how you find me. And also here is our information for our office. Portia does a lot of our blogging as well, so if you want to touch base with Portia and the website. This is intended to help build your business. If you want to continue to hit that next level of success, let me know. Also, who do you know who is ready to take the real estate to the next level? Call me, text me. Happy to have a conversation with them. If the models and systems we use here is a great fit and it's a win-win, then we can move forward. So if there's nothing else, we'll call it a night. Appreciate you guys being on here. And Isabel, Heather, and Jenny, thanks again for your time. I know it's valuable, so I appreciate you being on.
All right, thanks.
Have a good night.
All right, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks, gang. Take care.